Okay, welcome back, guys, gals, and internet pals. Today we have another tutorial video before we get into Unreal Engine, and this is going to be a video that I am titling 20 cents, because we are talking about paradigms. These jokes will not get better, so don't expect them to. All right, so what is a paradigm? Let's talk a little bit about that. Oh, I just hit my microphone. A paradigm is a way to view the world. And okay, what does that mean? It's, for example, let's say someone can have a rather optimistic lens on the world. Someone can have a rather pessimistic lens on the world. Someone could assume that or can't trust people in the world. Some people can trust everyone. There's a lot of different ways that people live their lives, and those are known as paradigms. They're ways that people go about their daily lives. But the way we're going to be using that here is we're going to call it a method. Why is it? Okay. A method to tackle a problem. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how to use specific paradigms to tackle design and development problems. So let's get right into that. Let's not waste any more time. So the first one we're going to be talking about is, where's my button? There it is. Talk about game design real quick, and how people start off with video game ideas or just game ideas in general. And the paradigm I'm going to be using throughout this course, and probably one of the most popular ones when someone doesn't have a flash of genius but wants to still come up with a game, is called, actually let me use red for this. It's called top-down design. And you can learn more about this if you want to take a class on it. There's a class called GSD 403, and it's taught by Professor Cermak here at the University of Illinois. If you're curious about it, go take the class. It's a pretty interesting class, and they'll go more in depth than I'm going to here. So top-down, what is it? Some games people may come up with because they have an idea for a mechanic. Let's say Super Hot. It has this mechanic where every time you move in real life, time will move forward. And so if you freeze, you have time to think about your actions or what you're going to be doing next in this high speed battle. So that game was built based on mechanic. So that's a little lower level, and then was built into an actual game. When we talk top down, the game itself is being built on an idea of a user experience. So let's write that down. So we got user experience. So basically what is happening here is when someone would come up, use top-down to determine what kind of game they were thinking of making, they would look at what I call, so you would start with a vision canvas. And the vision canvas will have a few things on it to help someone come up with a game. So there's a few things that you need to think about, especially with the player in mind, the core pillars in mind, doing core systems, working on an environment or setting, and having some sort of inspiration. So let's go into that. The first thing that you would want to talk about or you want to figure out is a genre. So what kind of genre are you aiming for? Are you aiming for a first person? Are you aiming for a 3D world or a side scroller? Are you aiming for a single player, multiplayer? Are you aiming for a competitive game or a casual game? Are you aiming for puzzles? Are you aiming for tactical, skill-based games, open worlds? It really stems from right here. And let me emphasize that when we're going over all of these things that you should be thinking about in top-down design, Um, Genre is not necessarily the first thing you come up with. You can start at any point and fill in the rest later. And that's why you'd want to keep a canvas open so you can write down these points in any position you want. So let's go on to the second one, which is world and environment. Okay, so what is world and environment? So this ties in rather closely with art samples, ties in rather closely with inspirations of other video games that you look at, ties in closely with 3D modeling. There's a lot of different things that you need to consider, but let's narrow it down a bit. Think about a game like Minecraft, where all the elements are all blocky. Everything you can determine in like number of blocks. So it's really creative in that way, but it also allows for restrictions, and you can manipulate that very easily. So it's a blocky environment with an infinite terrain. There's a low resolution pixel art style, even though the game is pretty high resolution itself and can run like shaders that are very high res. The weapons are from medieval era. There's no specific location, but there are randomly generated biomes. The choice, you can make a choice between creative or survival. There's a lot of different things to consider with world environment, and especially if you have a game with narrative or a storyline, you should include that here too. The third thing here is the player type. And when I say player type, I don't mean like physical build, weighs this much, this height. It's going to be what kind of players are you trying to attract with the game. So in this case, you would think about it sort of like marketing. What kind of players are you looking to market to so that they would pick up your game? So that could be like an adventurer, a puzzle master, a collector, a customizer, a completionist. There's just different kinds of characters, and then you'd want to label what game elements or game aspects are you thinking of including to draw these players to your game. And going with a player type, we also have a player experience. And a player experience, a player experience will be adjectives of things you want the player to feel or the player to experience as you're playing the game. So the player should feel empowered when they are mining for different materials. Should be excited when discovering new areas and new biomes. They should be challenged by the boss fights. They should be purposeful and resourceful when rationing materials. Different things like that. And you'd want to make quite a bit of them so that you understand what you're trying to make this game around. This one is core pillars. And the core pillars will be what the aim of the game is. So for a game like, again, Minecraft, you would want to have the players craft a variety of items. The player should explore. Players should interact with various mobs and various spawns, and the player should fight monsters, different things like that. They're very basic, and that's why they're the pillars. After this, you'd want to go into a system breakdown. And the system breakdown will include things like there's a combat system. There is a procedural generation system, which is randomly generated terrains and things like that. There should be a save. It should allow you to save the game. It should allow you to keep an inventory. It should allow you. There should be a health bar. There should be you can shift perspectives. Different things like that you think are essential to the gameplay. Along with system breakdown should be hidden systems. And the hidden systems will are things that run in the background but are essential to the gameplay. So for example, actually Minecraft again, we can talk about diamond mining. So I know that at some point or in different updates, there's different levels that are best for mining diamonds in the ground. So it's a hidden system that will procedurally generate specific. There can be veins of copper, veins of iron, or diamond ore in the ground, and it will be able to generate that, put them in random spots so you don't know exactly where to go in the world to find diamonds. And that's what makes the game fun every single time you play it, is that you don't know where anything is, so you have to go looking for it. You don't just turn on your coordinates and go to a specific coordinate and find diamonds every time. All right, and after hidden systems, the last one here is inspiration. And that will be other games, novels, any form of media that helped influence this game. So the game you're trying to make. So it could be the open world from Legend of Zelda. It could be the procedural generation from Minecraft. It could be the art style from Five Nights at Freddy's. It could be the gameplay from The Sims. It's very broad, and anything can inspire it, really. So if you would like, take your time to think about a game that's already out there, write a vision canvas for it, and sort of follow these guidelines in writing one. And we'll talk about this later, and that's why I'm bringing it up now, so that you know what I'll be talking about. But after the vision canvas, just a few more things before we get into development itself. There are other documents that you'd be writing, such as a tech design document, so a technical, and that will go into things that need to be designed in the game. So like keyboard input, WASD, or like mouse input. I need to be able to, I need an inventory system. I need a combat health system. I need a leveling up system. So what was I writing? Technical design doc. After technical design, you would want to write a game setting summary. And that will go into game narrative or the lack thereof, and you'd be able to write down what you need and what kind of environment you want to put the player into. And it goes back to the player experience and player type here, and it will make them, you're aiming to make a game for them so that they feel at home. After setting, things like art samples, things like proof of concept, and it just keeps going. So there's a lot of different things that you'd want to do here in order for you to get a good game design. So that's game design. So that's the first paradigm we're going to talk about. The second one is going to be for game development. And specifically, development of video games, of course. But we're going to be talking about a paradigm that I actually came up with for specifically development, and that is going to be game loops. So they do talk about this a little bit in the GSD 403 class, but this can actually also be applied to development of video games. So it's rather interesting. If you're interested in video game development specifically, there's a class called CS 498 that talks about game development, but they don't use the game loops method. So just a fair warning there. So game loops, what are they? Let's talk about that. It's high level, meaning that, let's say I have a Pokemon game, and I have there's a very high level game loop where you you catch Pokemon, you beat trainers, you go to a gym and you beat the gym, you go onto a new route, you beat trainers, you go to a new gym, and you keep doing that until you beat the Elite Four and then the champion, right? And you can see that there's a pattern. And if you look at other games, there's very similar patterns. Even Mario, there's a level, you fight monsters at the level, you get to the flagpole, you go to the next level. Even a game like Five Nights at Freddy's, there's every single night, there's certain problems that come up, you go to fix them, you stay away, you stay safe, and you move on to the next night. So there's game loops in every game. I can keep going on. Even Portal has them. There's levels that you need to get through. And the last level is a little different, but there is a very standard game loop that all these games go through. And the game I'm going to be talking about is, I don't know if a lot of you have heard of it, but Danganronpa. And you can look that up if you want, but it is a game that is a visual novel, but is also very story driven. And even though there's no, even though the story is different every time, there's still a game loop that we can talk about here. So Danganronpa is a game where there is a group of 15 high schoolers that get recruited to attend a new high school that is called one of the most elite high schools. But when they get there, it turns out that they are trapped in a game where you have to kill someone, or you have to kill another high schooler in the school and get away with it to leave and graduate. So they're all stuck there and they cannot escape. So the way that the game works is we can start drawing some game loops. We have every time. So there's always typical gameplay, but the first thing is someone dies. And after someone dies, there is evidence collection. So you try to go around, do a little detective work, and collect a bunch of evidence on the murder scene, on the places around it, any suspects, any witnesses. After evidence collection, I'm just going to keep going diagonally. After evidence collection, there is a trial and deduction. And that's where everyone goes into a room. The trial is held game-like, so you have to point out fallacies in people's statements. You have to pull up evidence to support your arguments, different things like that. And after that, there is closing statement, where what you're doing is you're just taking all the evidence and everything that everyone talked about in the trial and then forming them together to make a closing statement of who did it, why, what was the motive, what exactly happened. And then after the closing statement, that person that didn't get away with it is that person dies. So the murderer dies, and then we go back to square one. So there's this huge game loop that happens here. It's a high-level game loop, and because of that, we're able to see the natural flow of the game. Sure, but you're probably asking, what does this have to do with design? Or, sorry, not design. This has to do with design. What does it have to do with development? And that's where we get into the nitty-gritty of it. Let's look at a different example. Let's go back to that Snake game. So what did I write? So blue? Yeah, so let's go back to Snake. So example, Snake. So we did the Snake game in the first video, and we're going to bring it back now. So we have the snake that goes around. Let's make a board again. And there's an apple, of course, and then there's the snake that can go around and do things. So there's a few things that you need to know. So let's write a game loop out for this. I wrote it in green here, so let's do that again. So we have a game loop here. We have snake moves, snake eats fruit. Oops, fruit. And then snake grows longer. And repeat. So, and then at some point you can fail the game. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to find the loop here so that we can start developing for it. And now that we have the loop, and now that we know what needs to happen here, we can start dissecting it and finding out what is called event triggers. So on a I can't talk. On a specific event happening, we need to find what triggers that event and what needs to happen based on that trigger. So the couple of events that I can see here are on overlap. So there's specific things called on overlaps. On overlap with a fruit. So if I run into a fruit, and on overlap with self, with the snake. So if the snake hits itself, that's how you lose the game. So on fruit, so you need the snake needs to grow, and on self, it needs to die. And then the other events I can see are key press. So on arrow, it needs to change direction. So now that we have a few events here, we can start coding. And this is exactly how Unreal Engine works. There's specific events that you code in that, based on what's happening in the game, these event triggers will occur. And from these event triggers occurring, you can have code run. So let's say that there's a physics engine in the game, and there happens to be an overlap event where the snake hits the fruit. Then it knows that it needs to grow the snake by one size. Or if it hits itself, it needs to know that it needs to kill the snake and end the game. Same thing with key press. There's a key bindings that you can set up in Unreal Engine, where if you hit the key, you can go into change something that's happening in the game. And that's how most games work. But aside from that, there's some built-in functions that are pretty essential to Unreal Engine. So there's something called begin play. So like at the start, when you click the play button of the game, what does it do? Where do you go? There's something called event tick. And that's, you can sort of treat it like frames on a computer. So for every single frame of the game, what does the computer need to do? But it's not video frames, it's event ticks. And you can, by default, actually event tick on event tick. So by default, the event ticks will run at the fastest speed possible. That's usually clock cycles on a PC. You can change how fast you want each event tick to, or how often you want an event tick to happen. So for example, for this game, I would change the event tick to be slower because the easiest way to write this game is I want the snake to move forward. If I don't press any arrow keys, I want the snake to grow or to move forward one every single time, or every single event tick. So that would make it very easy to do. So you would be able to route the snake. The other few that you don't need to worry about right now, but we can talk about, are construction scripts. So that's when I drop this element into the scene, or I spawn this element, what should it do? Script. Construction scripts. And the last one is begin level. So let's say if I'm playing Portal, and there's loading zones in Portal that you probably notice. It's not every single in-game level, but they are separate levels themselves. So like levels 1, 2, and 3 in Portal will be on the same map, or on the same game engine level. But when you leave level 3 and go to level 4, you'll see there's some buffering that occurs, and it will be trying to load the next level. So that is because game engines are they're not infinitely powerful. They can only load a certain amount of data per level. And even open game worlds are not open worlds. They have a certain tolerance. There's a certain distance that they will render things within. After that, they are not rendering to their fullest power, or there's not rendering at all. There's a fog. Cool. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. Think about this if you'd like with another game. Understand what the mechanics are, what the inputs need to be, and how to code with specifically game loop paradigms. And yeah, make sure you come back for the next video, and I hope to see you there.